Here you get a feeling that the natural elements have a strong influence on moulding people. You can see that at a local exhibition of paintings that I visited. I somehow feel DHM's stories would never find their way into print. At least not in this newspaper. The new editor of the Stornoway Gazette is Kenny McKeever.
How important is it for a paper, Kenny, like the Gazette, to print a true reflection of life on the island?
Well, that's what the Gazette is. All of us who work in the Gazette live here. We are part of what's going on. We like to think that we are a mirror image, a reflection of what goes on in the islands, of the way island people think. At times we also maybe try and give a lead here and there as to how and where things should be going. And of course we also try and reflect what is happening in the islands for those who don't live in the islands anymore but who come from here and have a great interest in what's going on in the islands. We get letters literally from all over the world. I mean, we've even got one this week from the Cayman Islands, a lady asking, suggesting we start an ex-Pats or ex-Lewisman's column.
Mind you, you're not the only newspaper in circulation here, are you?
We are the only newspaper printed and published in the Western Isles, employing people in the Western Isles and talking about the community in which we actually live. There are other papers which circulate in our area, written and published outside the area which we directly work in and live in.
We are, of course, both of us talking about the West Highland Free Press. I think it must have some sort of value to the community, wouldn't you agree?
Oh yes, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say it didn't have a value. I have my own views about the line it takes in a lot of things. I have my own views about the proportion of comment there is to news.
Well now, with all that said about the West Highland Free Press, I had to find out more from their beleaguered columnist, Echen MacDonald. And I found Echen, not quite in exile, on his fish farm, just outside Stornoway.
Are there major differences between the two newspapers?
There's a great deal of difference. I think the West Highland, for the first time, gave a voice to the poacher and to the peasant as well as the landlord. I think we have been accused of being a poacher journal, but I don't think that's strictly true. It just gives them a voice occasionally.
And you do seem to be very much anti-establishment as a newspaper. Didn't you carry some sort of article about the difference between the town folk and the crofters?
Oh, we have done from time to time. I think there's a popular misconception that Stornoway is the capital of Gaeldom, whereas in fact it's a little pocket of English-speaking non-Gaels, if you like. Perhaps closely related, but it's not a Gaelic-speaking town, whereas in the country areas we tend to be almost exclusively Gaelic-speaking. And I think originally Stornoway as a centre of commerce attracted a lot of people from the East Coast who tend to be natural English speakers. Then people from country areas in Lewis and Harris moved in gradually. Probably the ones who were not robust enough to go to sea and colonise Canada and Australia and places like that. They became shop assistants in Stornoway, and their sons or grandchildren are the Stornowegians of today, and of course they try to distance themselves as much as possible from the peasantry, who are essentially Gaelic speaking. So this is one of the major differences. And I think the Gazette, coming back to the Gazette, was the voice of Stornoway rather than the islands.
But what do you think of the council?
They have done a reasonable job. I think recently you've probably heard of certain trouble with alleged difficulties between the south, which is Catholic, and the Protestant north. I think given time these would have been resolved quite amicably, because there are more similarities than differences. Apart from the one form of worship, they tried to impose recently their own ideas on how the people in the South East should spend their Sundays. And the convener, Sandy, was forced to make a statement in support of the majority. But he's a very capable and clever lad, and I'm sure given time he would have resolved it without any resort to bickering between North and South.